So, right guys, welcome back. I want to do a quick bonus video for you here and just show you a few things you can do in Photoshop to further enhance your renders. And here is one of the images straight from the studio, and I'm going to just copy it to a new layer so I can just start over. There we go. And so there is a few things you can do. Obviously, we can play with filters. One of my favorites is, of course, Nik Collection, Color FX Pro 4. And there you have different kind of, presets, so to speak. And one of my favorites is Pastel. And it has different modes up here that just have different looks, so to speak. And then you have also all kinds of presets you can select here to choose just how much extra glow you add or so forth. Saturation and contrast and so forth. And upon adding this one, it adds itself as an extra layer, which is quite cool, because what you can do with it then is you can further adjust its opacity to blend it, and just use it as much as you like, whether that suits your mood, or sometimes not just the mood, but the filters can at times become a little bit too intense, especially when you already have bright scenes. When you have a lot of darkness, then especially this filter here, the pastel, can survive. But if it's already a very bright scene, it might be a little bit too much. So it's good to you can just tone it down like this, right? Further on, what you can do is flatten the image and go back to Camera Raw. And Camera Raw is one of my favorite filters inside Photoshop. It's built in right into the software. So we can adjust here a warmer tint or colder tint, and also more magenta or greenish tone, which is really cool, right? And you can also play with exposure. And very cool thing, of course, is contrast. But here is the magic. Sometimes you have very bright spots in your render, or just these highlights, and you can further tone them down just to dim your render a bit, so it doesn't look that oversaturated. You can also play with shadows and adjust those, and whites and blacks. So besides those things, I often turn out clarity. Clarity adds a little bit of almost like a contrast increase slash glow effect slash something else, right? And a little bit of that often looks cool. Too much, not so much. Then you have, let me just bring this down to the normal value. You've got something called dehaze. Normally this is added to remove any haze from an image, but if you go backwards, it can have a cool brightening effect that might just add some kind of cool, like a gamma effect or something like that. Let me just pull this back to its normal value. What I also play with most of the time is lens correction and vignetting. And vignetting adds, this is something we talk about inside Dash Studio, this little extra thing around the edges, and maybe not that much, but often just a little bit, tones the edges of the image, pulls more attention towards the center, or where you have the ship in this case, and just makes it more pleasant to the eye. Some other filters, let me just show you here. I'll go back to this one, and let's do, for instance, this one. Just copy that to a new layer. So another thing you can play with is new layer, choose a color, let's say we use blue, and then use the paint bucket tool and use overlay. This is a really cool filter because it just adds that kind of vibrating color touch to your render. It can really make it dramatic very easily, right? Another thing you can do here is use a different blending mode. Overlay is very cool, but you have several others to choose from. Darken is kind of a um, very specific thing, and it kind of adds that kind of old school, old times, 70s look and feel, right? Depending on the color you have, of course. Really cool. Then we have lighten, which also kind of almost glows into the image. It's very, very dramatic. And obviously you got screen. A little bit too much, you know, brightness for my taste in this particular case. You got color dodge, like a high contrast version, very cool. And besides that, you got lighter color, which kind of destroys in this case. Overlay we already talked about. You got soft light, hard light, vivid light, and so forth. So there's a lot of things you can try here. And also you can use saturation. And luminosity is also gives that old school effect, kind of like a faded photo effect. Again, depending on what color you have here on this layer. So another thing that I would suggest you try, especially if you have dual layer images like this one. Let's just free it up from this layer so it stands alone. There we go. Is to play with gradients. So choose a color like blue on one end and red on the other. Then I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna create a gradient that goes through the horizon, if you will. Just draw a line like that, and you follow the horizon. Let's change the order, like so. And this is something that, you know, I was really exploring back in the 90s when I was, you know, I had my new camera, and there was these filters you had on, and one of them was this gradient filter. It was kind of like a tinted orangish sky, and whenever I filmed, I got this orange tint. So frankly, we can just change this to a little bit more orange rather than red. All right, and go with something like this. What's this useful for? Well, if you use it for overlay, you get this incredible feel of almost like a sun glare or something else going on. And obviously you can tone it down. Doesn't need that to be that intense, but already see, just without and with, it just adds that really cool dramatic effect. It's like the sun is gazing a lot over here, and then it's like a almost like a shadow effect. It's a really cool effect there. What's even more awesome to do here is to add an additional layer. Okay, so when you have this selected, you can click down here to create a mask. Alt click on this mask, use black and white, fill it with clouds, go back, and now you have, if you select the main layer here, you now have like a you know, slightly different, more realistic blending, if you will. It's no longer just a simple shade. It varies around the entire image. And of course, there's different, you know, things you can play with here. You can play with darker color, linear color, and all that. Color burn. See, it totally changes and affects the render in different ways, right? Screen, color dodge, and obviously soft light and hard light. Hard light is also really cool. Almost gives that colorization effect in this case. And you've got all the other options here that are somewhat less useful. Alright, so what else you can do is add glow effects. So you can pretty much say, hey, I want the sun to really gaze here. So you draw a line or circle in this case, fill it with something orangish to have some kind of warmer impact on your render or image, and then you blur it, Gaussian blur, and use quite a big radius here, 150 or something like that, right? Then you use screen on that. And screen really bleeds into the image and really creates that sensation of a really nice sunny effect. That's something you can add to any render. And so before leaving you, there's one more thing I want to show you, and that has to do with yet another filter. Let's grab this image here just real quick, and this one, it's a thing that it's a filter here in the Nik collection that really pulls out details, and normally I wouldn't want to do that, but there is a cool thing. It's a landscape filter and it's called Detail Extractor. Upon adding it, it just pulls out incredible detail on the plane in this case, and look at it. Let me just finish. Look at the incredible detail it has now. And there's a little bit of artifact here. This is a screenshot, not an actual render, but you can see, compare it, just it's an incredible amount of detail you can add to your scenes. And this is added to everything like the landscapes or buildings and airplanes, and it's just incredible, right? Further on, as an extra thing, what you can do with that, you can create a mask and then use black and just you paint with a dark brush here and remove it where it's not needed. Alright, and simply paint and design variations like battle-worn details. See what happens now? You have variation to the whole of the airplane, and it just looks amazing. That was an extra thing for you guys. So I just wanted to thank you for purchasing this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found a good amount of aha moments and cool tips that will help you in creating cool and incredible aerial renders. So guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.